I didn't become a photographer to take pictures. I wanted to be a photographer so I could tell stories. I went to school and I first started studying sociology, but I quickly realized that the camera would give me greater access to people. The other thing I learned was that everyone has a story, and in every story there's something we can usually all relate to. So this is a project that I started not too long ago, and it's called Lost in Plain Sight. And the idea behind the project was to photograph individuals who maybe outwardly didn't appear to be lost, but in some way they were. And one of the things I found was almost everyone I approached had some way or reason that they were lost. So I'm going to read the cards that they wrote with these pictures. My wife has been sick for 5 years. We have 2 sons. One is 7 years old, and my other son is 5 years old. Me and my wife has been together for 8 years. The last 5 years has been really hard. She's been in and out of the hospital very, very many times. And my children has had a hard time, and I'm helping her brother. He just got out of the nursing home. I've been helping her father. He lost both of his legs. And her mother just got put in ICU. I stay home and take care of my wife and children and home things. Okay. I've had a drinking and drug problem all my life. I go to meetings 3 times a week. My last drinking and drugging was when I got jumped last month. They got me good, stole all of my money and pain pills. They practically left me for dead for my friend Robin. I was out for 3 weeks, and it still bothers me. They will get paid back for what they did. I've been through a lot of ups and downs since I've been here. And this next photo was taken in a small town in Ohio. It's called Dundas. And I was exploring the town and came across these people and hung out with them for, I guess I went back for a couple of days. And I was really intrigued by the town because you could tell there was a lot that had been there, and there really wasn't much left. And so when I photograph people, I think I ask questions over and over again, and so people kind of start to understand, I guess, what I want to know, and they really explain things. And so when I asked her to write a card, she started writing about this town. Dundas was once an exciting little town, 2 schools, a general store. That was a nice little country town. They used to have Dundas Days, where the community would get together and have a good time. At one time, it had its post office and tavern, and now it's a trailer park with drug addicts on every corner. There's no economy here, and as far as our block, it lays underwater. And there's no point in living here anymore, since we could live in Wellston, where there's little economy but more convenience to everything. And this photo was taken in a nursing home, and it's of a woman with dementia. I met her daughter, I guess right after I took this photo, and I spent some time with her, and so she wanted to write the card for her mother. It's very hard seeing your mother really not being your mom. It wouldn't be so hard if she didn't suffer in her mind. Things are so real to her, and you usually can't console her. I've looked at her and sometimes can't believe the things she says and does. You grieve the loss of a parent when they die, but we've been grieving the loss of our mom for years because she is just here in body. It surprised me how honest people got when they had a note card and could write whatever they wanted. And so I was driving on the highway in Ohio, and I saw this big truck stop. There was truck stops on almost every corner of this area that I was driving through. And at one of the truck stops, there was a trucker chapel. And I started, noticing those more frequently. But so I went to the chapel, and I kept watching this little boy during the service, and he was really, really helpful the whole time. So after I took this photo, I asked him to write a card. And this is what he said. The reason I come out here every Sunday is because truckers are out there 24 hours, 7 days a week. The only time they get to see people is at the chapel and at truck stops. And they need the gospel and they need the Lord. And for the truckers that are already saved, the chapel provides fellow and encouragement. Plus, the chapel needs people to help out. So I come, straighten up, clean, etc. That's the reason why I come out to the chapel every Sunday. So this is a woman that was living in the YWCA in Columbus, Ohio. And this is her card. You got to have family. Blood is thicker than water, you know. But to make it more difficult, I'm a loner, so my life is lonely. What's even worse, I have kids I call my own. And it's hard because they never see their big bad mommy that does everything for herself. For me, storytelling is a collaborative process between the documentarian and the person being documented. People are collaborating when they let me in their life, and they're collaborating when they share their story. While I may have never faced the same set of circumstances as most people in my photos, I feel that if I'm able to sit down and talk to them, I can relate on a human level. A well-executed photo project draws the viewer in and creates empathy, no matter how different the person in the photograph is from the person viewing it. So this next project I'm going to show you is something I've been working on for a while, and I'm continuing to work on it. It's called Love Me, and it's the story of a teenage girl who's navigating adolescence while growing up in the cycle of generational poverty. Like many girls in Appalachia, the struggles of being a teenager are marked by the lack of resources available. I learned early on that it was difficult to parachute into someone's life and just stay for a couple hours and leave with an intimate photo or an intimate story. It's about being there. It's about opening myself up to a person, and in turn, hopefully, they open themselves up to me. A lot of what I do is simply sit and wait. I live other people's lives. I wait for that perfect moment when someone's true character is revealed. There are some days that I spend with someone without making a single image, and I think it's important to be there and immerse myself in their life. I literally just follow them around and see what they do. I try and understand how they relate to other people. I try and learn their fears and their motivations and just the things that make them tick. My access to situations relies on the relationships that I've built with each individual that I photograph. And in a large part, the success of each photograph is directly related to the access that someone's given me to their life. I received a lot of emails asking how I get people to do things in photos, and I think it's really important that you understand I don't. I simply get the access because I invest a lot of time in these people's lives, and everything that you see is what they really do, and I just happen to be there when they're doing it because, I'll spend the night at their house for days on end. Taking photos is a dance. It's knowing when to put the camera down and when to pick it back up again, and it's trying to understand what someone else is feeling. Okay, I want to transition into multimedia, which is something that I kind of started playing around with right after I got into photography, and it's really excited me because it gives a voice, like literally, to the person who's being photographed. So the idea of combining still images, audio, and video is nothing new to the world, but for some reason to photography, it was a big deal when people started doing it like 5 or 6 years ago, which is right when I graduated college. So in the piece I'm about to show you, I did all the photography, video, audio, and production work. And it's something that couldn't have been done, not too long ago because you would need a whole film crew to do it. But by being able to do everything myself, I kind of think I got access to something that maybe wouldn't have happened if it wasn't such an intimate environment. So the gentleman that you're going to see in this next piece, his name is Tom Rose, and I met him when I was waiting in line at a lock shop in Athens, Ohio in October 2008. He had this face that just begged to be photographed, so I asked if I could take his picture, and he invited me back to his house. I showed up the next morning and I knocked on the door. He opened it and he began to cry.
You remember something every day, it's memories. And if you don't have memories, you don't have anything, because life is but a memory. We met at the Athens County Fair. I believe it was 1940. I had seen her pass on the street where we were working, and I knew nothing about her, but I liked what I saw in a nice way. We was married in a little church around the corner on Fifth Avenue in New York City, and we were happily married for 63 years. When I bought the farm in '69, why we remodeled it piece by piece, room by room, and then we lived here the rest of our time in married life until she passed away. But death is so final. It's like turning off a light switch. Your mind is going a mile a minute, hoping. But that's where reality sets in again, and she's gone. Well, she was a very petite, loving little woman, very forgiving, more so than I. She loved cuddling. She loved to be held. And that's to be loved. But it's difficult for me to sleep. I don't know why. I wear out completely, but I sleep downstairs because I can't bear to go to bed by myself. I'm sorry. Everything I look at, Mary's a part of. The kitchen, the clown, the clock, the pictures, our baby pictures there. You try to live your life like you used to, and the used to isn't there. It's gone. I don't want to live in the past, but there's not much in the future. Love you, Cookie. It's supposed to get easier, but it better damn well hurry up and get easier, because I can't take much more. I went to the door after Mary Lou passed away, and I couldn't go in by myself. I had friends at the Plains Methodist Church, so I went out there.
And there's one thing that you and I need to know is in those moments of darkness where we feel like everybody's abandoned us and the days are so grim and don't look so good, to know that God will never leave us or forsake us. Will always protect us.
I don't want to get married again. I buried my wife's ring and her earrings and some of her personal things with her. I don't intend to ever have anyone else, any woman in my life. There's a harvest time for everything in the world. When an orange gets ripe, you either eat it or it rots. When a tree gets so big, it should be cut and used because it's going to decay or rot back into the soil. And a human life is the same way. You have to learn to manage and take care of everything you have, or you don't have anything. It's like the devil is sitting on your shoulder. Flip him off and keep going and say, get out of my way, because I'm going to keep going.
So at the time, I was unaware of his situation. I didn't know that he had lost his wife of 60 years only a few months earlier. That morning that I first went out there, I went inside and I sat on his couch and we talked for a really long time. I made his portrait, but his voice and his story and his desire to keep telling it to me made me go back. As is often the case with a lot of the projects that I've done, I didn't set out to do a story on a grief-stricken widower. Instead, the more and more I got closer to him, the more I understood the power of his story. I was recently reading through my transcripts when I came across this following quote. I saw a pitiful-looking girl walking in the key shop, and I really felt sorry for you. You weren't too warm. I don't know what it was. I didn't know you. I didn't know what you did, and I didn't know about your ambitious character and that you were in photography and journalism. But I liked you. I remember I asked you why you didn't have a coat on, and you said, I haven't unpacked yet. That's when you told me you were going to school. It's been a really delightful experience. You're like a daughter I never had. When I read that, it reminded me that we all walk away from interactions with our own perceptions, because I have no recollection of looking pitiful. But it also reminded me that as a photographer, I have to be willing to become vulnerable, because if I'm able to show myself to someone, they're more willing to show themselves to me. I was 26 when I started this project. I had never been married. I had never been in a committed relationship of 60 years, and I had never suffered the loss of losing a spouse. We came to this relationship with two contrasting views on life, mine highlighted by the inexperience in the world, and his by his knowledge of living. I learned a lot of things from Tom, but more than anything, through his loss, I learned about the human capacity to love. I never met Mary, but I felt like I came to know her through my friendship with Tom. It was imperative that she was part of this project because his life had been shaped by their relationship, and now it was defined by this loss. This project went beyond the bounds of storytelling and became a friendship for me. During the editing process, I struggled with the decision on whether or not to include myself in the piece because it had become such a process of change and growth for the two of us. But I ultimately decided that it was his story, and I was only there to help him tell it. Since I never included myself in the piece, I wanted to share with you this one last quote from the transcript. Maisie, you have helped. You have brought to light many memories, and I appreciate knowing you. You mentioned the fact that you hoped you have somebody that cared for you. When you meet him, you will know. And if when you do find somebody, he misuses you, wherever I am, I'm going to come back and beat him up. But you have to learn to give and share and give your love every day, because love isn't love until you give it away.